When I think about subconscious work or working with the shadow, it's like what goes down must come up. And we're seeing that within ourselves and out there too. And so I'm not turning away from it. I'm acknowledging it, but I'm also realizing that we all need a place to grieve. That's part of what I think is making things so elevated, is that we've lost the ability to let our knees hit the ground and really grieve and cry and feel it.
Welcome to the I Don't Believe in Astrology podcast. The podcast is dedicated to conscious souls looking to change the world. Astrologer by day, climate activist by night. Here is your host, Debra Silverman.
Welcome to the Debra Silverman I Don't Believe in Astrology podcast. That title, I can't say it without smiling. We believe in astrology, don't we?
Yes, of course.
Yes. Because you took level 1, did you?
I did. I just took level 1, even though I feel like astrology has been in my life by proxy by a lot of people that I admire, and you know, it's rubbed off. So yeah, I have definitely a new depth there.
And did you find out how cool your chart was, but you already knew that?
Well, yeah, I think it just helped me make peace with the lot in life that I've chosen as this, like a lot of Scorpio in my chart.
Can you tell us, give us a little history of what you do? Because I let the person that I'm interviewing give us their description of their life's work. So give us a little flavor.
Sure. And I think I'll start where the intersection of where we met until today. It's not going to take a long time, don't worry. But I used to work for a lot of people who were authors and coaches and people who were had a message for the world. I have a past in marketing and creativity and social media. And for a while, I was using those skills for not any and everyone, but it really got specific when I started to work with people who had a transformational message. And through working with a few of those people, I got kind of kicked out of the nest. It was like, I'm pretty sure you have a transformational message and you need to go out and be on your own. And so over the course of the last 7 years, really, after I got kicked out of the nest by quite a few people, mind you, not just one, that said, why are you working for us? You need to be doing this. So I've been on that journey of coaching and guiding and working with women, especially who are at points of big change, leaving a relationship, grieving something. I like to come in. It's like when the world runs away, I come in. And that's been part of my work, is being a harbinger, being a creative, being a spiritual provocateur. I'm also a writer. Yeah, I like having my hands in a lot of things.
Okay, let me just share for a moment, just because my audience obviously loves astrology. And let me get your chart. It was right here. I'm just going to pull this up in a little. Hello, Mr. Chart. Come on, get a little bigger. Oopsie, hold on. Yes, there you go. So we have a sun in Scorpio, a moon in Scorpio, a Mercury in Scorpio, and a Virgo rising.
Yes.
With 4 planets. I love this part, that we have 4 oopsie, push the wrong button there. 4 planets in the 3rd house of the communicator, of the networker, of the futurist, the Gemini thought process that's always considering, how can I network and who can I connect with and how can I provoke, she said, with Uranus sitting on her sun, the people. And we decided you were the lucky girl. You've got Jupiter sitting on the Ascendant. So we'll talk more about that, but I just want to note there's all this Scorpio with Virgo, and that implies healer, but we've added the 3rd house, which is the communicator. Mm-hmm. So we're moving into a new stratosphere. We're moving into a new reality. We can't see it from here, but your Uranus on the sun has glimpses of the future. Has that happened to you? You've seen things before they happen?
Well, I think I've always been on that, like the curve of things wanting to change. I feel like there's people that go out and they're pioneers and they sort of like build the thing that a lot of people will walk over later. And I find that people that are kind of like revolutionary thinkers aren't appreciated till much later. Like everything, like James Baldwin seems to be the person whose work I'm really resonating with. and he talks about how unpopular love is, and about how people think it's this little force, or we're not in there if we're choosing love. And so I think that's what happens when you're kind of speaking a little bit ahead of what people, I think there is this impulse. And so as I speak to it more, I find my people more, but I just think some of these ideas won't be popular till a little bit later. And I'm okay with that. I mean, you've been an astrologer forever, and now it's like, boom. But when it first started, people were probably like, stay back, Deb.
Being in graduate school and going to my supervisor and saying to her, I'm going to do a combination of astrology and psychology. And she was like, oh, no, you're not. I was like, oh, yes, I am. I mean, everywhere I went, I met resistance. But that was true of the shoulders you're standing on for the women that are behind you, that you had to be able to give your voice now full permission. And that's what I'm speaking to. Can you give me a concrete example so we're not talking theory?
This is so funny, because I think you're just picking up on things I've been thinking about, because it's what's up in the collective. And I started to think about back when I was a kid and really wanting to figure out why people didn't like me just based on my skin. And this is like a big thing for a little girl to be thinking about. But I remember my mom at the time, I fake sick for like 3 or 4 weeks. I did the thermometer on the light bulb. And looking back, she knew I wasn't sick. She knew that I needed some time off from school, because I went to, well, first of all, I grew up in a town where there weren't very many people that looked like me. So I had this belief in my mind that I wasn't okay, that who I wasn't okay. And I remember E.T. came out that year. And for some reason, E.T. has codes about being different, about accepting who you are, and about what home is. And so I stayed home for those 3 or 4 weeks that I fake sick once a week. I watched ET over and over again. I cried, and I really had to come to this point within myself that was like, at the time I was like, I didn't know that. I feel like I chose this. I chose my parents. I chose what I look like in this lifetime. I chose my race. I chose it all. I really do believe that. But at the time I thought, how can someone have these deep prejudice against me without knowing me? I felt so innocent, and it felt like, okay, I have to choose who I am in this world. And I often go back to this example, but like, if Oprah had bought into her limitations, there would be no Oprah. There's the person that's going to run the 5-minute mile. There's always going to be someone who goes ahead and says, I don't think that's true. And, epigenetics, all the things that we know now are something that I feel like I deeply ingrained into myself through ET, just by staying home, watching ET, and like feeling like, okay, I can do this.
That is such a beautiful example. And that film was so meaningful. Why was it a blockbuster? Because everyone has the ET in them that's been rejected, and that's being provoked and being alienated and separated, and feels like everybody has this. Astrology is all about, how do we give you back to the part of you that you're in love with, rather than the part of you that's so different and feels so separate. In your chart, you are such a futurist ahead of us. So you realized, and I wish everyone could say that, I chose this body. I chose this skin color. I chose my lineage. Wow. In 2 minutes, if the world would get conscious enough, well, that's coming soon to our neighborhood. There is a new movement. That's what you're part of. I mean, how old are you?
I'll be 44 next week.
Happy birthday next week. And 44 is a master number. And so you went through I know that you worked for my dear friend Colette Baron Reed, who's madly in love with you, as I am. People fall, like, I know you've been alienated or separated for woo-woo, tattoos, the color of your skin. There's probably 3 million things you could say make you separate. At the same time, the ones that love you know that you'll speak to the unspeakable. You'll give us an example of ET. We can all relate to putting I love that image, the thermometer, and your mom knew, but she let you get away with it.
Yeah.
And then you came home to yourself as the years have gone by. And now this is the future. You guys, we're in the future. Can we just come into here and now? We're in cyberspace. I'm sitting next to an angel being who I've never met in person, who I feel like I know. She's found her own voice, and we're giving you permission to have her be an echo that your ET inside of you that feels so weird is not so weird.
Exactly. I love that. Yeah.
Is there any other example? So how did you professionally make that transition from being supportive to taking your lead, to standing up and being a voice? Because boy, you guys go look at her Instagram. She is a voice.
Well, I think very much there definitely was some like gentle, like you can leave the nest, you should be doing this. There was that. And then there was just sometimes you have resonance with someone that you're working with, and there comes a time when it's time for them to grow and they know you need to grow, and so you move to you go separate ways. And to me it was like, okay, a little bit of my hand being forced, sink or swim, but I was beyond ready, and that's what spirit knew, and that's what a part of me knew. Of course it's scary when if you lose a job or you get laid off, or it's just time to move on. It really is. And there's
Was it 2015? Was that a turning point? Well, first of all, 2009, that must have been the first one, your Saturn return. What was that like?
in 2009 we just did this, and I
Saturn's
don't
like,
know if I'm so future focused that I'm like, that was then in 2009.
when you just turned 30.
Yeah, I think, that was okay. I know exactly what was happening. I was working at a law firm. I was doing marketing. Like I said, I have always been really creative, could add a creative touch, could really like get in the mind of the audience and speak to who I needed to speak to, but that wasn't filling me up. And, I feel like that was when the law of attraction had a big boom. But even before that, I was making vision boards. I had this like digital vision board. I was just telling my partner about this on my screen. And literally, that was the year that I manifested a space that looked exactly like the one that was on my vision board on my desktop for so long, and started planning weddings. My wedding, I'm married, unmarried. But at the time, my wedding got into a bunch of publications because we got married in a treehouse. It was really well done. And so they were like, who did your wedding? And I was like, you know what? I did. And this is the name of my company. We made it up on the spot. And then for the next 3 or 4 years, that's what I did full time, is plan
What's the name of your
events,
company?
homespun parties and events.
Because you are a party waiting to happen. The combination of all that Gemini with Scorpio, an excellent party with Virgo rising,
Yeah.
and Mars and Leo that said, okay, I'll stand up and be noticed, but I don't want to, but I will.
Yeah, very detail oriented. A lot of our weddings got into publications because we really cared about like all that fine tuning, and we love to make things. And it was a really sweet time in my life. But my mom started to get sick in that period too. So there was both. There was a lot of like beauty and ingenuity, and then there was this grief that I had to really reckon with and move into my ability to be with my mom as she left this realm and went into the other.
And were you so close to her?
Yeah. I mean, she's the mom that knew I was sick and let me stay home for ET, and we talked all the time. And I think the human condition is sometimes we can't see the full depth of something until it's not within our space. And
I get along so much better with my mom now that she's dead. I finally really understand her. Well, it's a little late, at least. And do you feel your Scorpio feel your mom around you?
Yes. We're very much, and because of the path I'd been on and the beliefs that I held, really at the end of her life, I made it a point to just be in her energy and feel like what that feels like when it's nearby. So yes, very much an alive relationship with me.
Okay, here's a couple of questions I love to ask my interviewees.
Mm-hmm.
What's a couple things in this life that you couldn't live without, that really gives you generous substance or love, or what is it that you count on?
Man, I feel like you're just like picking them all out, things I've been talking about in the last couple of days. But I grew up in a very musical home, and when I look back on some of the forces that kept me in this lifetime, and to be able to hold the information and knowledge that I have in a way, music has been one of them. So my mom was very musical. My mom was adopted. Her mom was a kind of a well-known opera singer at a time when Black people had to go in the back door, but they let her go in the front door because she was the main act. And so I have all these incredibly powerful women around me, my mother, my grandmother, but my mom was a singer. We always had music playing, and the project that I'm working on right now is actually an oracle deck and a guidebook about how to use music as a system of divination. So that's one big one. Without music, I would not be here. Like, I probably would have ejected myself from the thing.
You would have been like, E.T., she's over here.
Exactly. Take me home. But yeah, I think music, creativity, and dreams, and have been huge in my life.
Mars in the 12th house in Leo. Do you have big dreams?
Yes. I mean, my hashtag on Instagram is dream bigger. And it's funny that there's a whole story with that. But yes,
tell me that story.
Well, okay, so I have a dear friend who lives in Chattanooga. And one of the things people ask me a lot, because I've been doing my Instagram thing for almost 9-10 years, and it blew up. It got really popular over time, and everyone wants to know what the secret is. Everyone hates the secret because it's just consistency and having something good to say, excuse me, and being creative. But
so funny, everybody hates the secret, but here's the secret.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, there's no shortcuts. Basically, you got to do the work, you got to show up. But my friend was wanting to get online, and so she was doing all this research, like, okay, what should my hashtags be, all the like strategic stuff. And she found a few people had written about my hashtag, and she was like, did you know that you're on here? And I'm like, not at all. And so it's been such a gift to have that as a medium, because I watched Oprah growing up, and I knew that I would have to use my voice in some way. And it was pretty terrifying being what I identify as an introvert, and knowing that I have things to say, but not necessarily wanting to be the one that says them. So that's part of what the last 7 years have been to me, is really cultivation of my voice and being willing to share. And it's gotten me out there, right?
Dream big. That's how we got here. Dream big.
That's right.
The Scorpio Leo is a square, as you know, fire and water. So there's a self-consciousness that's built into your system, which is actually quite good because it keeps you humble.
Yeah, definitely. Humble pie often.
Okay, now here's a funny question. What would you do if you weren't working on social media? If you had an alternate world that you lived in, what would you be doing?
Alternate realm. I mean, if I could just suddenly become a singer, I always would sing in the choir. My mom had a voice, my grandmother had a voice. I think that could be like a secret talent that I have, or a dancer. I really love to physically express, because I use my mind so much, very cerebral, creative. So anything that like gets me back into the body is a friend.
Just pause right now for all of you listening. This is such an important facet of this existence that you are so masterful at. Creativity, singing, dancing. Why do we leave it back as our children, and we let our children go have a party, and then you reach an adulthood moment where the singing stops, the dancing stops, and we turn into grown-ups? That is not okay. So if there's a way to keep vitality, said the Scorpio, look at her chart. If there's a way to keep vitality in the system and defy time and aging, it's that level of creativity. I am a living proof of that one. Okay. So great question. Who's the person in your life that you would, that doesn't have to be alive, that you wish that you could have a conversation with if they were still alive? It could be alive or dead. Who would you love to say, oh, I just want to ask a few questions?
Yeah. I mean, I have to start with my mom. I think about this often, and I switch out my council members. Sometimes I'm like, I just need advice from Prince. Like, what would Prince do in this situation? And I have this whole like league of people who aren't embodied to pull information with and from. And so I think, first of all, my mom, I just would want to talk to her about my new life and my love and like what I'm up to, and get her feelings and opinions. Although I have my own way of doing that, but if I could like physically see her, I think I would start there. And then
dreams?
Yes, very much so. Comes to me in my dreams. So many different ways she appears, and through friends who have the gift, through other friends who are like, just feel like your mom wants me to deliver this message. And it's usually something I need to hear or I've been thinking about. So she was so active in my life. And I'm like, she's just meddling from over there because that's all she did here. She always wanted to be in my business, which I love and I miss, honestly. I think at the time I was like a few steps back, mom, but now I'm like, bring it, bring more, bring more.
You say her name and let's just acknowledge her during this podcast. What's her name?
Yes. Angela Ophelia Lee was her maiden name. Yeah. Yeah. Mama.
It's so funny how often during this podcast, when it just happened with this wonderful man who was from Ghana, and I asked him who he would speak to, and he said it was his mother. And he said, the interesting thing he said that really touched my heart was, as the years have gone by, he's realized, because he just had a baby, that if he could have only spent more time just sitting next to her, that it was annoying. You know, parents are annoying, but then after they're gone, you're like, wait. It's so funny how we live in pods. You guys probably don't realize this consciously, but we keep reincarnating in pods. And there's people that you've known over lifetimes that came as your mother or as your sister or as your first grade teacher who you felt such an alliance with, and they don't go away. And there's this theory that I made up. There's some people you can't get rid of.
Well, you must have unfinished business, right, Deb?
Yes. And why would you not want to still be in love with the person you were in love with? That's called unfinished business. I'm not done yet. All it means when you miss somebody is that you weren't done yet.
I like that. I like that. That gave me all the feels.
Your little Scorpio came right into that. Okay. When's the last time that you cried?
Oh my gosh. I've been just literally, I used to think that it was weak to cry, probably because I needed to get in touch with my tears. And I've been so stoic in so many, this was the thing that I heard myself say, and I was like, whoa, I don't know where that came from. But I was in Portugal recently with a group of women I had gathered, and I said, I think the physical pain I'm feeling in my body because I'm going through a healing is every time I didn't let my heart break. It's not actually the heartbreak, it's when I've resisted it and it's compounded. And so over the course of the last month or two, that's been my prayer, just like, give me an opportunity to cry with you and with this friend and with that friend. And I've really like let down my guard in that way. And I feel so much lighter and brighter. But this morning I was in tears, just like the state of the world and how it feels like we're so divided if we're really paying attention to that. But I feel like there's wisdom that's emerging through it. And we had to, when I think about subconscious work or working with the shadow, it's like what goes down must come up. And we're seeing that within ourselves and out there too. And so I'm not turning away from it. I'm acknowledging it, but I'm also realizing that we all need a place to grieve. That's part of what I think is making things so elevated, is that we've lost the ability to let our knees hit the ground and really grieve and cry and feel it.
Craziest thing, I just told this story many years ago, over 30 years ago. I had an encounter with spirit, and they specifically said to me in no uncertain terms, be prepared. The human condition is going to go through an emotional initiation. And if they don't take the high road, it will become very distorted. The first ecosystem in the ecology is water. We have the coral is gone. So the water element on this planet is suffering, the water element in us. And to hear a Scorpio say, who's Virgo rising, that you would cut off and now you're paying the price. I cry every single day about what's happening on the planet right now. I can't even stop. Nor do I, to your point. Anyone listening to this, the numbness of the human condition is the source of what has created all the physical elements of evil. Because unless the water can clean this thing out, we live on a planet that should be called water, not earth. It's blue.
Yep. That's exactly it. In my mind's eye, I saw a filtration system. And if we're not using it, then the fish tank or the pond, or it gets stagnant. And there's that, all of the crusty ghosts are in there, but if we cry, if we grieve, which is praise, then we can. To me, grief is a way that I can stay more in touch with my spirit, with my soul. Some people think suffering is optional. Like, there are going to be hardships. There's going to be times when we suffer here, but if we don't feel it, then we become numb. We become robots. We become capable of doing things that aren't good for the whole or for ourselves even. So this to me is a key element. I do grief groups. I work with people who are grieving. I feel guided in that space and comfortable in that space. It's like actually when the world is okay, I'm always like, oh my God, am I doing the right thing? And then the world moves into chaos. And I'm like, I know my role. I know my job. I know what I'm supposed to say. I know what I'm here for. And I'm just like
Welcome
this.
to Scorpio. Oh my God, that's Scorpio. When there's
Yeah.
the first person you want to call, 911 is a Scorpio.
Yeah.
They're the
Yeah.
person who can be with you in your pain, in your grief, in your fear, in your negativity, and they'll call you out and they'll be able to sit and receive it, because all we're longing for, everyone, is permission, one, to be seen. Hello, astrology. Oh, you're a Virgo rising with 4 planets in Scorpio. I understand your Mars and Leo is a little confusing because you want to perform, but you don't. And then part two, that's the astrology. And then part 2 is, how do I breathe deeply? Oh, I know. I reduce the resistance to preventing me from feeling. And the moment that starts with tears or sadness or anger, it could be anger. I'm so unbelievable. Sometimes I feel like I get scared that when I get home to the pearly gates, they're going to see me coming and they're going to go, we're not letting her in. All she did was complain, because I can't understand the human condition not having a manual how to deal with their emotional body. That would have changed everything. No more jealousy. No, I mean, the jealousy could be there, or the anger could be there, or the resentment. And there would be a technology. There'd be little guardians sitting at the door when, as soon as you had that awful thought, and the guardian would come in and go, excuse me, that thought needs to be put down here into the garbage. Like the liver and the kidney knows what to let go of. It's perfect at getting rid of toxins. But the brain has thoughts that live in there, that smell.
Well, talk about guidebooks for this life. I think dream work is one of them. It's one of the most underutilized things that is built into the human body. We haven't evolved out of the need to have dreams. When we're dreaming, our body is in a state of healing anyway. We're in that REM state. And so for me, this is unexplored territory for so many people. We spend almost a third of our life sleeping. It's like, are you kidding me? That's so much power. If we're not connecting with our dreams, what are we even doing? Like, come on, people, come on.
Really important. So this revolution that's occurring in the human condition, one is the emotional body being accepted. And you hear everybody saying now, you got to go through it to get through it. You can't deny your emotions. That's new. Yeah. That's an updated version.
Well, but and suddenly we have nervous systems, and we like,
no one ever talked about it before. Now,
no.
But here's the last frontier. You named it. In the unconscious, there is a host of angels that live in your dream time. It shows up in the most random of languages. So you think. I always use the example of this client coming to see me, and she said, I had the strangest dream of this new guy I'm dating. He went golfing and he pulled out his golf clubs, and then he couldn't find any of his balls, and then he ended up coming home at the end. And I said, wait, say that again. He couldn't find his balls. Anybody listening? But if you don't say it out loud,
true,
you will not be able to hear. So the dream world requires a tribe or a community. And there are dream interpreters, which is one of my very favorite things to do. But it takes a lot of wisdom to recognize that in the other world that we spend a third of our life in, there's something going on.
Exactly.
And you're one of those dreamers. Look at your 12th house, Jupiter on the ascendant. It's one of your loves.
Yeah, and always been a big dreamer, could always remember my dreams, very much can lucid dream.
Can you tell us a dream that was really influential in this life that never leaves your awareness, that you can just really...
Well, I'll tell you one recently. There's quite a few. I've had a lot of really numinous dreams with animals or my guides or my mom, but recently I was going through Northern California, so all the giant redwoods. And if you've been to the redwoods or seen them, you know that there's something so profound, so special, so amazing. You just feel so small and enraptured at the same time. And one of the things I love about those trees is that they're so big, but their roots actually aren't very deep. It's the intermingling with the other root systems that keeps these giant ancient beings in our realm. And so as I was passing through and we stopped, just had that feeling, and I've just been dreaming of trees ever since. And one of the dreams that I had most recently was I was watching a man just cut down these trees, and I couldn't understand while he was cutting them down. And they look like, we're seeing all these horrific images come out of all these different places, and we're understanding war in a totally different way, because it's not just out there, it's within us. We see it because we're bickering back and forth. Well, you think this, well, you think that. No, you're wrong. The same sort of energy, right? And so I'm watching these giant ancient beings which look like mangled bodies, and I'm really like beside myself with tears, and I'm watching this man cut them down, and suddenly the tree starts to fall, and instead of like really freaking out in my dream about where to position myself, I center myself and I watch this tree come down, and at the last minute I know where to step, so I'm out of harm's way. But I've been speaking a lot about what it means to be a harbinger at this time, and it means finding your center and breathing when these things are happening, so we can remain connected in our humanity instead of drawing all these lines. Our worlds just get smaller and smaller and smaller, don't they, if that's how we do it? And so to me, that dream was very much about finding my center when the poop was hitting the fan, really.
That's such a beautiful dream.
Yeah. And
oh, you go.
well, just the wisdom of the ancient beings too. That's what I felt in the redwoods. I felt, I felt my spirit having a conversation with these beings who are on this earth. And so and that I could be the voice for some of the ones that are getting chopped down, or being or being marginalized, or said to be marginalized. I really am careful with the language that I use, because words are spells, right? And it's up to us to start to speak a different language and dream a different dream into being, right?
Oh, it makes me feel so good. I mean, your gift of words and your embodiment is what I feel so strongly. You're one of those people. This is a podcast of someone who's living it through her heart, through her veins, through her blood, through her voice, through her singing, through her creativity. She can't stop. And that's the high road of Scorpio. It's so wonderful we're in Scorpio. It's the high road of Scorpio to say, yes, they're scary, they're miserable, they have depression, they go to the dark, they have this tendency to be addicted. And the flip side is they're passionate and they're focused and they're not full of shit. Real, it's
like
real.
that.
Scorpio is the one that's going to tell you the truth. So thank you so much for what you've contributed. You guys have got to go to her Instagram. I love the idea that you can promote taking women places. We're going to follow you and tell me a story. I would love for you to tell me a story. Do you know about my course? It just came out of my mouth. Do you know about my course called Tell Me a Story?
No, tell me.
Oh my God, I want you in it so bad. We're going to make this happen. It's a writing class based on the 4 elements, and you tell your story in the elemental conversation. And it becomes very poetic, one of disclosing and dislodging all the backed up contractions we live with, and then 2, witnessed. You know how important that is. So I'm going to make sure that it's so funny, just because your chart is such a profound, talking about dusting things off and letting trees have a voice and giving ET and the thermometer, none of this. And that's the difference of the podcast when someone's talking theory and I can't follow. I'm a little slow. People think I'm smart, but really, I wait for things to hit me in my body before I know. And you energetically are so impactful. And I want to ask all of you listen to this. Are your words impactful? Are they authentically coming out of your heart and your tummy? Or are they theories and words that you've listened to it by hearing millions of podcasts? We listen and listen and listen. But when do the tires hit the ground? And when do we actually alter our nervous system by becoming the tree?
I love that. Talk about way with words. That's why you want to have this group of storytelling, because it's fun to, well, I guess I have a little story, and I think it relates to something I've learned from you, which is about the missing element. And so it's like, either if we have a lot of something in our chart, we're really great at it, or we're here to learn from it. And I very much feel that the how many planets I have in Scorpio is what I'm here to learn, what I'm really here to learn. And so that's why the emotional piece has been such a challenge, because I can really defer to, okay, logic and reason and putting things in boxes and checking them off. And that doesn't really spark that much within me. And so it's like, that the dreamer, the wild heart, the feeler really had to go into the feeling body
And
to
the sensual aliveness that you carry. Look at you. You're energetically, if we had to take a Kirlian photograph, you got colors all over your hat. It's just true. And you
Yeah.
know, when you meet someone where you go, I want what they had, like what that's, I'm inviting everyone. We're going to finish here. I think the biggest important thing of this podcast has been, my last question is, because you're a futurist, are you an optimist or a pessimist? How are you feeling about where we're headed as a Uranian character who does get glimpses through your dreams, through your intuition?
I mean, I'll defer to a James Baldwin quote, which he basically was like, I can't afford to be pessimistic. And so I think I'm very realistic about the human condition. And that's, I think that needs to be here. Like, it is messy. I'm going to acknowledge that. I'm not just going to skip that. It's there, but at the same time, I think it's the medium through which we can, I get an image of the lotus that has to grow through all of the crud and bloom into something new. And so that's all I do have is hope. I think that it's sort of already done. We're just living through it, this echo of time, where the guards are changing. I don't know how long it's going to take. Whenever you're hopeful, people were like, well, can you tell me like exactly how long this transition is going to take? I don't know. But it is up to us to plant seeds of things that we want to see. It's up to us to give our time towards what we want to see and not just like watching destruction happen and then going and playing it out on some micro level. It really is a time to be in your practice, to connect with your dreams, to be around people whose shoulders you can stand on, and to really like embody what it means to be a holder of the new paradigm. Because now more than ever, we need those people who can build the bridge for others to walk on when they feel it's sturdy and reliable and they trust that again. So totally hopeful.
Oh my goodness. When you hear a Scorpio tell you you're totally hopeful, that would be her Jupiter sitting on her soul. She has Jupiter that when she was born on the horizon was the planet of luck. And she's a lucky girl. Just finish with that story. I love when you did that during our immersion, that you win things.
Yeah. So this is the book that my dad thinks I should write, because over the course of the last 10 or 12 years, I've won, I'm talking dozens, probably into the hundreds of contests, and contests from Oprah. I've been to Bali for 3 weeks. I've been to Fiji. Some of these are just luck, as one would call them. I don't, luck. Wait, what's your acronym for luck?
Living under correct knowledge.
There you go. I think that's been a big part of it. There's a few things I know about contests, and if they're not just not random, then a lot of people don't enter and don't give their best. I'm really skilled at writing, so if there's a writing I've run a lot of writing contests, writing about my mom, writing about something heartfelt. Those tend to do really well. But yeah, it's been kind of like that Midas touch, that like sprinkle of magic, talking to spirit about the kind of life I'd like to have. And it's like, oh, there's this avenue that no one believes in. Every time I win a contest, people are like, those are real? I'm like, yeah, here I am. I've won it.
Couple things you've won. So the trip, what did you win from Oprah?
Well, one of the first things I won that was like how lightning will strike again is that I won a 3-week cruise to Alaska from Oprah. Like, it was just you get on the website, you see a contest, you enter it, and I think it was like the last day it was closing. I like to think that maybe mine was like the last entry, and then they like shook this big hat and like pulled my name out. They called me 2 days later and I was like, are you serious? And they're like, yep, you've won this 3-week contest. You're going to Alaska. We'll pick out the dates. And after that, it just really made me believe it was possible. And so it just was like boom, boom, boom after that. Fiji, Paris, custom clothing, the Grammys, like just a lot.
Okay, we're going to leave on this. This is like my favorite conversation. When you live under correct knowledge, it's not luck.
Yeah.
It's when you operate with when you're a Scorpio and you feel the depths, but you operate with the heights. That bridge creates miracles.
I love that. Yeah. The miracle bridge.
That was so much fun. I'm going to stop the recording. Can you believe that, you guys, how fast we just got energized by the one and only? Can you tell them, how will they find you on Instagram?
So if all roads lead home, I like to say that a lot. It's Ayesha Ophelia. My website's just Ayesha Ophelia, and my Instagram is Ayesha Ophelia. I will say this, there's a lot of fake accounts. Just make sure that it's the real account and you'll know. But yes, just my name, Ayesha Ophelia.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening. We want to keep this conversation going with you, so please subscribe to our podcast and leave a rating and review to make sure you never miss an episode. Remember, climate activist by day, human by night. Send Debra a DM on Instagram at Debra Silverman Astrology and visit DebraSilvermanAstrology.com. And we're going to leave you like we leave every single episode. Make it your mission to change the world.